Hey guys, it's Goose. Hey, it's been a minute. I have been gone a while. As you can see, I'm not in my usual filming environment. This is my college apartment. So I've been away, obviously, at school, dealing with all the apartment stuff that comes along with moving into a new place. So that is what I've been up to. That's why I have been MIA for quite a while. But today I have homework to do. And for those of you who are not aware, I am a classical civilization student slash major slash that's the degree I'm working towards. So yeah, I am a history student. And oddly enough, a classical civilizations degree is different than a classics degree, which is something that I just learned recently, and I'm kind of embarrassed that I didn't know that before now. Because a classics degree is when you specialize in a language. A classical civilizations degree has no language specialization. You're just kind of like learning about classics minus the language. So, yeah, but today, as I said, I have homework to do. And so I thought, to get myself motivated, because I have like almost 100 pages of reading to do every week, I would help myself out a little bit and read this week's reading for one of my classes to you guys. So this is one of my books for my Greek religion class. This is Greek Religion, a source book by Valerie M. Warrior. And this is a very interesting book, and I do enjoy it. It's kind of in a format that I really appreciate. But for my class tomorrow, I have to read an entire chapter. So I figured I would pop in some gum and read it out loud, because that will help not only me understand, but also help you guys relax, hopefully, maybe. And I feel like this is a pretty... this subject is kind of like split down the middle. So like either you'll be really into this and you'll learn something and it'll be interesting, or you'll be bored enough that you'll go to sleep. Either way, I consider myself a winner there. Anyways, oh, one other thing. I know that the candle collection won the last poll, and I did post it, or so I thought. I had it filmed, edited, all ready to go. I posted it, and then I didn't check back for a couple days just because I was busy. And then I checked back, and I had gotten like no notifications for the video. It just didn't upload, and the file is gone. So I will be doing a candle collection, I swear. It's just kind of hard right now because all of my belongings are kind of like split between here and my parents' house. Also, I don't know what the hell is sticking out of this shirt, so just ignore that. It's like all weird. I don't know, whatever. So anyway, yeah, candle collection will be coming. I'm not just ignoring you, I promise. So let's go ahead and get started. I could drop the gum, that's fine. I really gotta take that trash out. Okay. I'm getting emails. Anyways, okay. So this is the Greek Religion source book by Valerie M. Warrior. And today's reading is chapter 4, Prayer and Sacrifice. So we start out with a couple of excerpts from different writings. All right, so this first one, 4.1, is Demosthenes' Espitula. It is proper for a person who is beginning any serious discourse or task to begin first with the gods. And we have 4.2, Hesiod, Work and Days, 465 to 468. Pray to Zeus of the earth and appear Demeter, and that the sacred corn of Demeter be full and heavy when you first begin plowing. All right, then we have Pleo Euthipero. It is then that the case that sacrificing is making a gift to the gods, whereas praying is asking them for something. And then we have Plato. I should be better at pronouncing these things by now. Politicus, yes. Priests, as tradition says, are experts in giving gifts from us to the gods through sacrifices and making requests of gods on our behalf in prayers for the acquisition of good things. And then finally we have Plato laws. To make sacrifice in commune with the gods continually by prayers, offerings, and devotions of every kind is most noble and good, and conducive to a happy life, and also most fitting for the good person. All right, here we go, we're getting into the meat. Most of the extant traditional Greek prayers are petitionary, invoking the gods and making a request to win the gods' favor or mitigate their anger. There are also prayers of supplication, dedication, and thanksgiving, as well as hymns, vows, or promises, and oaths invoking a god as a witness. In the domestic sphere, prayer and sacrifice were made by individual males and females on behalf of themselves or their family, usually without the assistance of a priest or priestess. By contrast, most public and state rituals were administered by a male or female priest who served a particular deity. A priest acted as an intermediary between a deity and a worshiper, not as an advisor or pastor. The overall duty of a priest was to attend to sacred matters, hiera, which included sacrifices and other offerings, and the maintenance of the sanctuary of a particular god or goddess and the property within that sanctuary. Underlying the rituals of prayer and sacrifice is the pragmatic concept of a contractual relationship that works on three implicit principles: the giving of a gift in the hope that the favor will be returned when needed, the promise of a gift in return for the granting of a prayer, and the request of favor in return for previous gifts. The scale of the sacrifice would have varied according to the occasion and number of participants, be it public or private. Gifts range from the deposit in a god's sanctuary of valuable durable offerings like the Manticlos Apollo's statuette, large statues or gold and silver vessels, to perishable commodities like a cake, produce of the earth, or the meat of a sacrificial animal. The impression given by the literary and epigraphic sources is that the bigger and better the gift and the louder the prayer, the greater was the chance that the gods would pay attention and respond to their request. The Trojan priest Chryses prayed to Apollo because his daughter had been captured by the Greeks and King Agamemnon had refused the priest's offer of ransom. Chryses first reminds Apollo of previous animal sacrifices he has made. He then asks Apollo to punish the Greeks because Agamemnon has dishonored him. The invocation specifies particular locations and a cult title in order to identify Apollo precisely, since otherwise the god may not respond. The prayer is immediately answered as Apollo sends a plague upon the Greeks. And then we have a little passage from the Iliad, which is actually just what I was about to say. Oh, I read the Iliad. All right, Homer Iliad 1.37 to 52, sorry. Hear me, god of the silver bow, protector of Chryse and sacred Scylla, ruling in might over Tenedos, Smintheus, I don't know what that means. If ever I built and roofed a temple to give you joy, if I ever burned rich fat from the thighs of bulls or goats for you in sacrifice, I beg you, fulfill my desire. Use your arrows to make the Danaans pay for my tears. So he spoke in prayer, and Phoebus Apollo heard him. He went down to the craggy peaks of Olympus, rage in his heart, bearing his bow and close-covered quiver slung on his shoulders. The arrows he bore on his shoulders rattled and clanged with his stride as he moved along full of rage. He advanced on them like the knight. He took a position away from the ships and let fly a shaft. A terrible clanging noise rang out from the silver bow. First he aimed at the mules and swift-running dogs, but then he released a piercing arrow towards the men themselves and struck them. Countless pyres of corpses ceaselessly burned. Also, don't mind the ambulance that just went screaming by. Yeah, so countless pyres of corpses ceaselessly burned. All right, then we have blood and other sacrifice. The sacrifice of animals is especially prominent in Homer and is a recurrent theme in Greek iconography. This ritual was performed at public festivals throughout the Greek world and at family events such as weddings. In sacrifice to the Olympian gods, part of the animal was burned as an offering to the deity, and the rest was consumed by the worshippers at a communal feast. However, the victim was generally not consumed in sacrifices to heroes, to the dead, to chthonic deities, nor in sacrifices performed before battle or before crossing a river or other boundary, taking an oath, or making a purification. So, the victim was generally not consumed in sacrifices. Okay, so this is like saying the exceptions to that. So, you don't eat the animal. People don't eat the animal in sacrifices to heroes, the dead, chthonic deities, which, if you're unfamiliar with this, chthonic deities are like earth gods. So like Hades would be considered a chthonic deity. So if you burn an offering to Hades, you don't eat the meat. Nor in sacrifices performed. Okay, so no eating the meat before battle, no before crossing a river or other boundary, or taking an oath or making a purification. Gotcha. So they just ate the meat when they were giving it as gifts. The most prestigious and expensive sacrificial victims were cattle. Sheep and goats were the more usual victims. Pigs also were sacrificed, especially to Demeter. Also attested is sacrifice of chickens, dogs, birds, and fish. These sacrificial victims were carefully scrutinized for purity to ensure that they were without blemish and tested for their behavior under stress. Plutarch, himself a Delphic priest, relates that the reason for pouring liquid on a sacrificial animal was to test the vitality and so prove its sustainability for a sacrifice to a god. All right, then we have a little excerpt from Plutarch Moralia. For when priests and holy men say that they are offering sacrifice and pouring a libation over a victim and observing its movements and its trembling, how do they interpret this except as a sign that the god will prophesy or not? For what is being offered as a sacrifice must be pure, unblemished, and unmarred, both in body and in spirit. It is not difficult to observe indications of the body, but the spirit is tested by placing meals before bowls and peas before boars. If the animal does not taste the food, they deem it unsound. The test for a goat is cold water, for apathy and a lack of reaction when doused is not a normal characteristic. Homer describes the sacrifice of the animal sent by Agamemnon to propitiate Apollo. When the daughter of the priest Chryses was returned to her father, Chryses prays to Apollo to stop the plague. And now we have another little chunk from the Iliad. Then, much devising, Odysseus led the girl to the altar, placed her back in her own dear father's arms, and addressed him. Chryses, the lord of men, Agamemnon has sent me to bring you back your child and slaughter a sacred hecatomb. To Phoebus on the Danaans' behalf, to propitiate the Lord who has sent the Argives sorrows full of lament. So speaking, he placed her back in his arms. He accepted his own dear daughter joyfully. Swiftly and in due order, they stood a sacred hecatomb round the well-built altar, then washed their hands and took up handfuls of barley corns. Chryses lifted his arms and prayed in a mighty voice, "Hear me, God of the silver bow, protector of Chryse and sacred Scylla, ruling in might over Tenedos. Once before you heard me indeed as I lifted my voice in prayer, honored me greatly, and harshly smote the Achaean army. Now once again, as before, I beg you, fulfill my desire. Drive back this foul plague and turn it from the Danaans." So he spoke in prayer, and Phoebus Apollo heard him. When they had prayed and cast the barley corns on the victims, they pulled back the animals' heads, cut their throats, and skinned them. Then they cut out the thigh bones and folded a layer of fat around them on both sides, and placed on them pieces of flesh. These the old man burned on a wooden stick, then poured on gleaming wine. Beside him, young men held in their hands 5-pronged forks. Then, after consuming the thighs with fire and tasting the entrails, they cut up the rest of the meat and pierced it with spits, and roasted it skillfully. Then they drew off the pieces. After the work was done and the feast was ready, they feasted, and no one's heart was deprived of an equal share of the feast. And when their desire for food and drink had been satisfied, young men filled mixing bowls to the brim with drink and served it. Okay, so, and just for context, I suppose, a hecatomb is properly the offering of 100 oxen but generally used for a large number of sacrificial victims. So when they say hecatomb, they're either talking about 100 oxen or just like a lot of people. Or not people, because they didn't sacrifice people. A lot of sacrificial victims. And then we have a little picture depicting a sacrifice. Looks like they're taking a sheep. It's always hard to tell with these old pictures. I'm not really sure what animal that is. Looks like a dog, but they didn't sacrifice dogs often. Like it mentioned just now that they sacrifice dogs. But they don't do it often, that's what I'm trying to say. So why is my eye so red? Okay. A passage from the Odyssey supplies further details of sacrificial ritual. King Nestor of Pylos is giving a feast in honor of Telemachus, the son of Odysseus, and he orders a sacrifice in fulfillment of a vow to Athena. The victims' horns are gilded, and the women prepare the feast, uttering a ritual cry as Nestor's sons kill the heifer. Okay. Then here's that passage from the Odyssey. I don't know how to fucking say this guy's name. The hero, that's an unfortunate name, Pisistratus, came among them and made a sixth, and they brought and seated beside them godlike Telemachus. Then Nestor, Gerenian horseman, began to speak among them. Swiftly, my own dear children, I beg you, fulfill my desire that I may propitiate first among gods Athena, who came to me in visible form at this sumptuous feast of the god. Come, one of you to the plain for a heifer, that it may arrive as quickly as possible, driven here by a herdsman. Another, go to the place where Telemachus, great of heart, has left his black ship. Bring all his comrades, leaving 2 of them only. Let a third man go and summon Laerces, who works in gold, to come here that he may plate with gold the horns of the heifer. So it wouldn't be a heifer if it has horns, but whatever. The rest of you all remain here together. Direct the women servants inside the house and prepare for a glorious feast, to arrange the seats and firewood and bring us splendid water. So he spoke, and all of them busied themselves. The heifer arrived from the plain. Great-hearted Telemachus' comrades arrived from their speedy, well-balanced ship. The metalsmith arrived with his metalworking tools in his hands, the tools that defined his skill, the well-constructed tongs, the anvil and hammer with which he worked on the gold. Athena arrived to attend her rites. The old man Nestor, the charioteer, gave gold to the smith, who plated the heifer's horns with particular care to give the goddess joy when she looked on the splendid gift. Then glorious Echephron and Stratius led in the heifer by the horns. Aretus arrived from within with a flowered bowl of water. His other hand held barley corns in a basket. Thrasimides, stalwart, I have no fucking clue what that means. Stalwart in war, stood by them holding a sharp axe in his hand to strike the heifer, while Perseus held the bowl for the blood. The old man Nestor, the charioteer, began with the water and barley corns, and with lengthy prayers to Athena, casting hairs from the heifer's head in the fire. When they had prayed and cast the barley corns on the victim, at once Thrasimides, Nestor's son, the mighty of heart, stood close and struck. The axe cut the tendons of the neck, depriving the heifer of vigor. Then they let out a piercing cry, the daughters of Nestor, his daughters-in-law and respected wife, Eurydice, eldest born of the daughters of Clymenus. The others raised up the victim's head from the broad-pathed earth and held it back as Pisistratus slaughtered it, leader of men. After the black blood flowed and the vigor of life had left, the bones they quickly dismembered. And the vigor of life had left the bones. They quickly dismantled the heifer and cut out the thigh bones, all in the proper way, and folded a layer of fat around them on both sides, and placed them on the pieces of flesh. These the old man burned on a wooden stick, then poured on gleaming wine. Beside him young men held in their hands 5-pronged forks. Then after consuming the thighs with fire and tasting the entrails, they cut up the rest of the meat and pierced it with spits and roasted it, holding the pointed spits in their hands. When they had roasted the outer flesh and drawn off the pieces, they sat and feasted. Good men attended to them as they ate, pouring streams of wine into drinking cups made out of gold. In another description of sacrifice from the Odyssey, Eumaeus, the swineherd on Odysseus' farm, grants hospitality to a stranger who is Odysseus in disguise. Eumaeus sacrifices his prize boar as he prays for Odysseus' safe return. I thought I could escape the Odyssey. I've read 3 books of it already today. Okay, so this is another little thingy from the Odyssey right here. So, and the men brought in a very fat boar that was 5 years old and stood it beside the hearth. The swineherd did not forget the immortal gods, for he was a man who possessed good sense. He began by casting into the fire some hairs from the head of the white boar. Okay, so this is quite literally just the same thing described. They kill it, they burn it, they skew it on forks, and then, yeah, it's the same thing. All right, and then this is a little piece from Hesiod's Theogony. For when gods and mortal men made a settlement at Mycenae, then he, Prometheus, cleverly cut up a big ox and set it before them, trying to deceive the mind of Zeus. For Zeus he set out meat and innards rich with fat on the skin, covering it with the stomach of the ox. But for men he set the white ox bones with crafty skill, arranging them well and covering them with shining fat. Then the father of gods and men said to him, Son of Iapetus, distinguished of all gods, Sir, how unjustly you divided the portions. Thus Zeus, knowing deathless pain, spoke and mocked him. But clever Prometheus answered him, gently smiling, and did not forget his crafty trick. Zeus, most honored and greatest of eternal gods, take of these whichever the spirit within tells you. He spoke with a trick in his mind, but Zeus, knowing deathless plans, knew and did not miss the trick. In his heart he foresaw evils which were going to happen to mortal men. With both hands he lifted up the white fat, but he was angry in mind, and rage came to his spirit when he saw the white ox bones in the crafty trick. Therefore the tribes of men of earth burned to the immortals white bones on reeking altars. Then we have Menander, who was a comedy writer, and his play comedy, The Grouch. Here's a little excerpt from that. How these rogues sacrifice. They bring their picnic boxes and wine jars, not for the gods, but for themselves. The incense is a pious offering, also the sacrificial cake. The god gets all of these when they are put on the fire, and the tail and the gallbladder they give to the gods because they are inedible. The rest they guzzle themselves. Then we have another comedy, Aristophanes' Peace. This is going to be fun to read. Okay, so Trigeus. Well then, hold out the bowl so that we can start the work as we pray to the gods. Hermes. Pour libations, auspicious language, please. Oh, it's Trigeus, sorry. Trigeus. As we pour, we'll pray that this day may be the beginning of every good for the Greeks. And may anyone who toils with us this day at the ropes never be forced to bear a shield again. After rescuing the goddess, Trigeus prepares to make a sacrifice to her. He also sends his slave to find a sheep, while he finds an altar and other necessities for sacrifice. This humorous account is the most detailed literary evidence for the technical details of an ordinary animal sacrifice as opposed to the more elaborate sacrifices described in Homer. Trigeus. Go then and bring the sheep as quickly as possible. I'll provide an altar on which we'll sacrifice. Trigeus. Oh look, here's an altar right in front of our door. Slave. Here's the basket with barley corns and a garland and a knife, and here's the kindling. The only thing we're missing is the sheep. Chorus. The two of you should have should have a contest with each other. For if Ceres sees you, he'll come uninvited to play his pipes, and then I know full well for his puffing and toiling you'll end up having to pay him. I don't know what the fuck that means. After the sheep is produced, Trigeus gives further instructions to the slave while he dips some kindling in the water and sprinkles it over the sheep, telling it to shake. Trigeus. Here, take the basket and the vessel with lustral water. Walk quickly round the altar from left to right. Slave. All right, what's the next order? I've done the circuit. Trigeus. Right, I'll take this firewood and dip it in water. To the sheep. You there, be quick and shake. To the slave. You, hand me some of the barley corns. Hand me the container and wash your hands. Now throw some of the barley to the audience. You've already thrown it? Slave. Yes, by Hermes. There's not a single one of the spectators who hasn't got a barley corn. An oraclemonger, Heracles, arrives, offering more hindrance than help. Heracles, what's the sacrifice, and to which of the gods are you sacrificing? Trigeus, keep roasting and don't speak, and keep off the tailpiece. Heracles, won't you say to whom you are sacrificing? This tail looks good. Trigeus, the tail is good. Slave, it sure is good, dear Lady Peace. Heracles, come then, begin, and let me give the first offerings. Trigeus, better to roast it first. Heracles, but these are already roasted. Trigeus, you are a busybody, whoever you are. To the slave, start carving. Slave, where's the table? Trigeus, bring the wine. Heracles, the tongue is cut separately. Trigeus, we know, but do you know what you should do? Heracles, tell me. Trigeus, don't speak a word to us, for this is a sacrifice to peace. That's funny. Trigeus refuses to let Heracles taste the entrails and pour the libation. Trigeus, pour on the libation and hand me a piece of the entrails. Heracles, if that's your idea, I'll serve myself too. Trigeus, pour libation, pour libation. Heracles, pour it for me too and give me a share of the entrails. Trigeus, that's not what the blessed gods want. Before that happens, we'll make the libation. As for you, get out. O Lady Peace, remain with us throughout our life. 2 inscriptions from religious calendars from different areas indicate some of the mundane preliminaries for public sacrifice. A mid-4th century BCE religious calendar from the Aegean island of Kos describes the selection and preparations for the sacrifice of an ox to Zeus Polius. This festival, the biggest civic festival of the year, was celebrated in the month Batramius, the approximate equivalent of January, in the agora or marketplace within the sanctuary of the 12 gods. The inscription also gives specifications for the different sacrifices, the duties of individual priests, prerequisites for various people, and the disposition of the meat, which must be either kept within the city or consumed in the sanctuary. The first part of the inscription deals with the selection of the sacrificial ox. On the day before the sacrifice takes place, 9 oxen, 3 from 3 different groups, were driven into the marketplace, where they were observed by a priest who was sitting at a table, wearing his sacred garb, with the hieropoioi, the managers of the sacred rite, on each side of the table. The ox selected for sacrifice was the one that made a bow to the goddess Hestia, goddess of the hearth and one of the 12 gods. Okay, and then I think this is the, let's see how many more pages we have. Okay, we're doing pretty good. So then this is the inscription that it was just talking about. Excuse me, oh my god. Okay. It is sacrificed if it makes a deep bow to Hestia. The king's share receiver makes a sacrifice and provides offerings and offers, in addition, half the hecatus of offerings. He takes his share, the skin and a leg, and the hieropoioi take a leg, and the remaining meat belongs to the city. The heralds lead the ox selected for Zeus to the agora. After reaching the agora, the owner of the ox or the person deputizing for him calls out, "For the people of Kos, I am providing the ox. Let the Koans give the price to Hestia." And let the chief magistrates immediately take an oath and make an evaluation. When evaluation has been made, let the herald announce how much the evaluation was. Then they drive the ox to Hestia Heterea, and make the sacrifice. The priest puts a ribbon upon the ox and pours a cup of wine mixed with water as a libation in front of the ox. Then they lead the ox away, together with the burnt offerings, 7 cakes, honey, and the ribbon. As they leave, they call for respectful silence. At this point, they untie the ox and begin the sacrificial rituals with olive and laurel. The heralds burn a pig and its entrails upon the altar, pouring on libations of honey and milk. After washing the intestines, they burn them beside the altar. And once they are burnt without wine, let him, the herald, pour upon them a libation of honey and milk. Let the herald announce that they are celebrating the annual festival as a feast for Zeus Peleus. Let the priests make an additional offering together with the intestines, incense, and cakes, libations mixed and unmixed, and a ribbon. And let the priest and herald go to the herapoioi at the public building, and let the herapoioi entertain the priest and the herald during this night. When they make libations, let the priest choose one of the herapoioi as slaughter of the ox that is being sacrificed to Zeus Peleus, and let him proclaim that the slaughterer shall be pure from women and man during the night. And let the heralds choose whoever they want from their own number as slaughterer of the ox, and let whomever of them wishes to proclaim the choice to the person chosen. On the same day, to Dionysus Siletes, a pig and a kid. The pig meat is not to be taken away from the sanctuary. What the hell was that? The priest makes the sacrifice and provides the offerings. As prerequisites, he takes the skin and the leg. On the 20th, the selected ox is sacrificed to Zeus Peleus. What has to be wrapped is wrapped in the skin. On the hearth, a sacrifice is made of half a hecatus of barley, 2 half hecatus loaves, 1 shaped like a cheese. What the fuck does that mean? And then things wrapped in skin. On these, the priest pours a libation of 3 mixing bowls of wine. Prerequisites from the ox: for the priest, the skin and the leg. The priest provides the offerings, and half of the breast and half the stomach. For the incense bearer, the hip end of the leg given to the hieropoioi. For the heralds, a double portion of meat from the back. Shoulder meat, a 3-spit share portion of blood meat for the Nestoridae. A double portion of meat from the back for the doctors. Meat for the flute player. Meat to the smiths and potters, the brain. The rest of the meat is for the city. All of these are not taken out of the city. On the same day, to Athena Polius, a pregnant sheep. The priest makes the sacrifice and provides the offerings. As prerequisites, he takes the skin and a leg. On the 21st, to Dionysus Siletes, a pig and a kid. The meat of the pig is not to be taken away. The priest makes the sacrifice and provides the offerings. As prerequisites, he takes the skin and a leg. Alright, so then this is an excerpt from the beginning of an early 4th century BCE sacrificial calendar from the deme of Marathon in Attica. Gives the cost of providing animals and other offerings for the official sacrifices held by the deme each month. This is like almost unintelligible because it's like all, I'll read anyway. The deme leader of the Marathonians makes the following sacrifices in the first quarter of the year within 10 days. To the hero, a pig, 3 drachmas. To the heroine, a pig, 3 drachmas. A table for the hero and the heroine, 1 drachma. In the month of Bodromion, before the mysteries. The fuck? An ox, 90 drachmas. A sheep, 12 drachmas. To Korotrophos. In the second quarter, in the month Poseidon, an ox, 150 drachmas, a sheep, 12 drachmas. To the heroine, a sheep, 11 drachmas, priestly portion, 7 drachmas. To earth in the fields, a pregnant cow, 70 drachmas, priestly portion. To Telete, 40 drachmas. And if you ask me what any of that means, I couldn't tell you. All right. And they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages left. We're almost done, guys. Ritual purity and pollution. In several of the passages we have examined, the need for cleanliness before making a sacrifice is expressed. When Hector returns from the battlefield, he reminds his mother of the need for cleansing himself before making a libation, as he asks her to make an offering and prayer to Athena. So we're back to the Iliad now. Lady Mother, do not lift honey-sweet wine to my lips, or my limbs may lose their fury and I may forget my strength. Reverence keeps me from pouring gleaming wine to Zeus, and libation with hands unwashed. No one splattered with blood and gore can pray to the son of Kronos, Lord of the dark clouds. But collect the older women together and go to the temple of Athena, driver of spoils, with offerings to be burned, and take a gown, the most delightful and largest that you have in that palace. the one that is dearest to you yourself, and place it upon the lovely-haired goddess Athena's knees. Promise that we will sacrifice in her temple 12 unbroken yearling heifers, if only she will take pity on our city and on the Trojans' wives and innocent children, and keep the son of Tydeus away from sacred Troy, Diomedes, the savage spearman and powerful master of fear. Hector's mother goes with her attendants to Athena's temple and gives a gown to the priestess, who prays on their behalf to the goddess. At the end of this excerpt, Homer remarks that Athena did not grant their prayer because she liked Odysseus too much and he was on the other side. All right, and then we've got more Iliad. And when they reached Athena's temple up on the citadel, Theano of the lovely cheeks threw open the doors for them, daughter of Cisseus and wife of Antenor, tamer of horses, for the Trojans had appointed her as Athena's priestess. With a piercing cry, all lifted up their arms to Athena. Theano of the lovely cheeks took hold of the gown and placed it upon the lovely-haired goddess Athena's knees and prayed, invoking the aid of the daughter of mighty Zeus. Lady Athena, defender of cities, glorious goddess, break Diomedes' spear and grant that he himself fall headlong onto his face in front of the Scaean gates. And we will immediately sacrifice in your temple 12 unbroken yearling heifers, if only you will take pity on our city and on the Trojans' wives and innocent children. So she spoke in prayer, but Pallas Athena refused her. Oh. All right, and then here is Hesiod's advice on ritual purity, because we all just care so much about what Hesiod has to say. So this is working days. After dawn, never pour a libation of sparkling wine to Zeus with unwashed hands, nor to the other immortal gods, for they will not hear you and will spit back on your prayers. All right, so wash your hands. In so far as you can, make sacrifice to the immortal gods in purity and cleanliness, and burn the shining thigh bones. At other times, propitiate them with libations and incense, both when you go to bed and when the sacred light returns, so that their hearts and minds may be propitious to you, and that you may buy the property of others and not have someone else buy yours. This is like a side note. Although fear of pollution becomes more pervasive in the literature and history of the period after Homer and Hesiod, this does not mean that it was not perceived earlier. A late 4th century BCE law on pollution from Cyrene gives stipulations about a man making sacrifice after sexual intercourse. This is fake, YouTube. All of this is fake. A man coming from a woman after sleeping with her by night may sacrifice whatever he wishes. If he has slept with her during the day, once he has washed, he may go wherever he wishes. The most abhorrent pollution was caused by homicide, whether voluntary or involuntary. The orator Demosthenes cites a law of Dracon, the late 7th century BCE lawgiver, listing the various bans imposed on a murderer, thus making the offender a complete social outcast. Good. That's what happens when you kill someone. Okay. Demosthenes against Leptines. Leptines must be the murderer. Okay. Among the laws of his kind, Dracon marked the terrible crime of homicide by banning the offender from lustral water, libations, the mixing bowl, sacrifices, and the marketplace. Thus, he enumerated everything that he had thought would be a likely deterrent to homicide. The situation of Oedipus, as portrayed in Sophocles' King Oedipus, epitomizes the worst kind of pollution, that of a man who has unknowingly killed his own father. At the beginning of the play, the priest of Zeus describes the pollution that is afflicting the entire community of Thebes because of an unsolved murder. This is actually a pretty interesting part of the story. All right, so this is Oedipus. Priest, as you yourself can see, the city is now so badly storm-tossed that it can no longer keep its head from sinking down beneath the tossing waves of blood. It is decaying in the fruitful husks of the earth, decaying in the herds of pastured cattle, and in women's barren labor pains, and the fire-bearing god, most hateful plague, has swooped to scourge the city, emptying the house of Cadmus, while black Hades is enriched with groaning and laments. When Oedipus is told by the oracle of Apollo that the cause of the plague is the murder of Laius, he invokes a terrible curse that makes the murderer a complete social outcast. Ironically, Oedipus has no idea that he himself is the murderer of the long-dead King Laius, and that Laius was his father. Spoiler alert if you haven't read Oedipus. Okay, so then we're back. Oedipus. I solemnly prohibit anyone within this land whose power and throne are mine to take him in. The man who did this, or address him, or allow him to participate in prayers and sacrifices to the gods, or let him share the lustral water. No, all must thrust from him. All must thrust him from their homes, since he's the source of the polluting taint upon us, as the god's Pythian oracle has just revealed to me. This is a fun word. In Aeschylus? I think it's Aeschylus. In Aeschylus's Eumenides, Orestes, who has killed his mother Clytemnestra to avenge his father's murder, goes to Apollo's shrine at Delphi to be purified from the pollution incurring by matricide. He describes how he was purified by the blood of a slaughtered pig. This is Aeschylus's Eumenides. Orestes. Schooled medieval, I know many ways of purification, and I know where speech is right, and likewise silence. And in this case, I am ordered to speak by a wise teacher, for the blood upon my hand becomes sleepy and dies away, and the pollution, miasma, of my matricide is washed away. At Apollo's hearth, while still fresh, it was expelled by Phoebus's cleansing with the slaughter of a pig. The philosopher Heraclitus comments on the futility of ritual purification by means of blood. Heraclitus, in vain, humans purify themselves of blood guilt by defiling themselves with blood, as though one who had stepped into mud were to wash with mud. Anyone noticing him doing this would think him mad. That's kind of real. I can't even lie. All right, and then this last 2 pages is some ancestral practices. In Xenophon's Memorabilia, Socrates speaks of the advice of Apollo, who said that the god's favor was best obtained by the following custom of the city. You see that the Delphic god, when someone asked him how he might win favor with the gods, answered, by following the custom of the city. For I suppose everywhere it is the custom to perpetuate the gods to the best of one's ability with offerings. How better, then, can a man honor the gods with due reverence than by doing their bidding? The following excerpts indicate 3 different contexts in which ancestral customs prevailed. In Aeschylus's 7 against Thebes, these names are putting me in the ground, bro. Eteocles, the army commander, prays for the god's support, vowing magnificent gifts in the event of victory. I need to get my shit together, guys. Aeschylus's 7 against Thebes. Make the better prayer. May the gods fight on our side. Listen in your turn to my prayer, then raise the sacred cry of jubilation, the Paean, the customary Greek invocation at sacrifices, which emboldens our friends and delivers us from battle fear. To the guardian gods of my country, whether they dwell in the plain or keep watch over the marketplace, to the springs of Dirce, to the waters of the Ismenus. I now promise that, if all goes well and the city is saved, I will offer on the altars of the gods the blood of sheep and the sacrifice of bulls. Thus I vow to set up trophies, and I shall drape our sacred plains with our enemies' garments pierced by our spears. Thucydides describes the prayers and libations that were offered when the Athenian fleet set out for Sicily to begin a new campaign. Alright, so Thucydides. When the ships had been manned and loaded with everything that they were going to take with them, silence was proclaimed by a blast on the trumpet. They offered the prayers that were customary before making a voyage, not each ship individually, but all together, led by a herald. Throughout the whole army, marines and officers mixed the wine and poured libations in gold and silver cups. The rest of the throng of citizens on the shore and any others who wished them well prayed with them. When they had sung the Paean and finished the libations, they set sail. And in this last section is a poem by the philosopher Xenophanes, describing the religious preparations for a symposium or a drinking party. Sounds like a great time. Okay, so this is Xenophanes. Now the floor is clean, and the hands of every guest and the drinking cups. Someone puts garlands on our heads. Another hands the sweet-scented myrrh in a dish. The mixing bowl stands full of good cheer, and more wine is ready to hand, wine which promises never to run short. Sweet wine in the wine jars, smelling of flowers. In the midst, incense sends up its sacred odor, and there is cold water, sweet and pure. Golden loaves are set out, and there is a magnificent table loaded with cheese and rich honey. The altar in the middle is a mass of flowers, and song and festivity fill the house. Men of good cheer must first hymn the god with reverent words and pure speech, pouring libations and praying to act righteously, for this is more within our reach. It is not excessive for a man to drink as much as he can carry him home without the help of an attendant, unless he is very old. It is not excessive for a man to drink as much as can carry him home without the help. Okay. I praise the man who, as he drinks, reveals noble thoughts, displaying his memory and striving for his virtue. He never recounts the battles of titans or giants or centaurs, the fancies of earlier generations or violent factions. There is nothing good in these things, but it is always best to have respect for the gods. And that is chapter 4 of the Greek religion source book. I'm so glad that that is off my plate now, because I will be able to do a really good discussion in class tomorrow, hopefully. So, thank you so much for watching. I know this was a long one. I know it was a little boring, probably. I'm just hoping that YouTube does not take down this video for all its mentions of blood and entrails and rituals and sacrifices. So YouTube, I swear this was all fake. This didn't really happen, okay? It's literally, most of it is fiction. Most of it's from the Iliad, so like, you know, get off my ass. Anyways, I hope you guys were able to enjoy it at least a little bit, and stay tuned for the candle collection coming out soon, I hope. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!